Let's start by discussing what we're going to focus on. I'm not going to focus on the graphical part first because I'm not the best person to do that. Actually, my CVs in general tend to be very ugly from a graphical point of view. I do my best to make it pretty, but sometimes I look at others and I said, wow, that really, it's really, really nice. Mine usually is not. And because also I would like to focus today more on the content rather than the format. I will, of course, say something if I see a CV which is really, really ugly, but in general that's not the focus of the discussion. And I will not focus on the English, in the sense that I will not focus on how sentences are written or things like those. I'll focus really on the content. That said, is important that the grammar is there, right? So don't make too many mistakes. And it's important that sentences are understandable, right? So people reading it will understand what you mean. But I'm not going to discuss, again, because I'm not the best person to do it. I'm not going to discuss if that's the best way to express that point in English. As long as I can get it, it's good. That said, before getting into the one important thing, who will review your CV? Right. In the meanwhile, I see Lele asking for my CV. I mean, you can look up my profile in LinkedIn. I mean, it's not exactly my CV, but I don't have a very up to date CV at the moment. Most probably, LinkedIn is more up to date than my real CV. But yeah, some days when I have time to update, I'll share it back with all of that. That said, as I said, when you submit a CV, who will review your CV? This is important because when you write something, you always, and that's true not only for CVs, in general for communication, it is important to keep in mind the audience, right? So who will review your CV largely depends on the company and on the setup. But if we are looking at tech companies, especially the large one, you should expect that the first system to look at your CV is an ATS, so an applicant tracking system. Usually, as far as I am aware, I haven't seen any use of ATS for active filtering. So it's not, I heard rumors, but maybe I'm not sure that there are really companies doing that. I I haven't seen people getting rejected because an ATS system decided to reject them. ATS system are usually used to extract information from the CV, so it's important that your CV is ATS friendly. Uh, but it's not that the ATS will make a decision if you're going to move forward or not. Or at least I haven't seen in my experience any of these cases, although I heard people mentioning them. So the first step is an ATS. The second is likely to be a recruiter, right? So the recruiter will look at your CV. The recruiter might not be an expert on the position, might not have the technical background, might not have deep understanding. I mean, I work with recruiters that were deeply technical and they were able to understand even the most complex acronym you have on your CV. But in general, not all of them are at that level of tech, technical expertise. So it's important that your CV is understandable from someone who doesn't have your same level of understanding of the specific topic or matter, right? Then the third one is likely to be the hiring manager. So you pass the ATS, you pass the recruiter, your CV is forwarded to the hiring manager. The hiring manager will most probably understand everything you have in your CV if your CV uh, is, let's say, a good candidate for the role. So at that point, the hiring manager is most probably going to dig more into the detail and try to understand if what you are saying in your CV is applicable to the specific role. And then, if you move forward with the process, you will start getting into interviews. And so the interviewers will also look at your CV, usually to prepare the interview and to get a sense what to ask, right? So these are the four main uh, audiences that you have to prepare your CV for. Um, and so Frappo I mean, as usual, I'll try to answer question as they come, or maybe at the end of a section if I'm. But please, don't don't be afraid. Ask anything, and then I'll figure out how to get back to your question. So Frappo is asking, how often do you suggest updating one's CV? Frappo, I would say, uh, as it depends how much. So there are two cases, right? You're looking for a job, in which case your CV should be up to date. Most probably, if you're still working or doing something while searching for a job, then you might deliver some impactful work that you want to add to your CV. So depending on how often you deliver something important, you update it. And the other thing, we will get to it, you should update it at least a little bit every time you apply to the role. Why I'm saying so is because there is, I mean, updating a CV just to tailor to a specific position could make a large difference. So when you apply, even if those two roles are very similar, they are both project managers or program manager roles, you they might have different requirements. You want to tailor your CV based on the role. It doesn't mean doing a full revamp or the entire CV, but actually maybe tailoring, changing some things based on the role. So I hope, Frappo, I answered your question. But so, um, thanks, Kerr. Your English sounds really good. Thanks, Kerr. I still hold my Italian accent, so people uh, usually recognize that I'm Italian, but I've been working with English for the last 10 years, and so I had to improve my English over time. Um, so when you look at your CV, and then we will see some example. But before getting into the example, um, some people usually start with a summary, achievements kind of section at the top. That part is not mandatory. Okay, you can use it if you have something meaningful to say. Don't use it with boilerplate kind of buzzwords. I'm a leader, great communicator. I can deal with, I can deliver under stress. I'm an overachiever and team worker. Right? There are some CVs that really start with this. Right? That part, the top, is the first thing everyone will look at. So it's a very precious part of your CV. Either you have something very important to say or remove the section. Let people get into your experience and everything else. Don't just waste their time telling something that doesn't have anything meaningful, right? Which is just buzzwords and boilerplate kind of words, which are not saying much about uh, um, your contribution. So remember that in general, if you look it up, you will see things that I hardly believe. But there is this thing that recruiters will spend 6 to 8 seconds on each CV. I think it's a little bit tough to do it in 6 to 8 seconds. I mean, I can do 8 seconds review for someone who is very far from what I'm looking for. I can open it. It's no 5 seconds and close it. But for people that are kind of aligned with the requirement, I usually spend at least 1 to 5 minutes, right, uh, to get to get a sense of what the person did and how. But still, 1 minute is not a lot of time, right? Um, on average, people will not Google the terms you have, will not look up what that specific acronym is. They will read it and understand what they understand. And then if there is something that is really important, they look it up, right? But they're not going to do 10 Google searches, excuse me, just to get a sense of what you want to say. Uh, what is the most important thing to say is are usually numbers, right? I love numbers. I'm a data driven person, but in general, numbers are the most impactful or the easiest way to express your impact. Let me give you an example. Uh, I manage a team of 20 program managers responsible for 100 products generating a billion revenues for the company. Now, there is not, I mean, anyone will understand what I've done. Now, you can say, no, that's not enough for this role. Or someone would say, yeah, oh, this is pretty strong. We want to hear more. But if instead I would have said, I manage large team of program managers, managing a lot of products and generating a lot of revenues, right? You see the difference. And of course, now I'm making the two extreme here. One is very, very rich in numbers, and the other one is nothing and a lot of boilerplate. But I'm saying exactly the same thing. In one way, I'm not quantifying it, right? So this is a big problem because everyone in the world can say, I manage a large team and created a lot of revenues. Not a lot of people can say, I manage a team of 20 and 100 products for billion revenues, right? Uh, and this is not the real example from my CV, it's just a random example. So, what you want to describe in your CV is for each important part, you want people to grasp, to understand the complexity of that work. Don't give it for granted. People might not understand the complexity, the impact of that work, and your contribution. There is a difference between what you did and what the team or the project did, even if you were the one leading the team, right? You did part, you did you had some direct contribution to something which at the end allowed the team to go to Mars. But it's not just your contribution that took the entire team to Mars, right? There is much more, and so sometimes conflating what the team does with what you do generate confusion. In some cases, it's obvious what you did. In some others, is not. So to be on the safe side, assume that people never understand what you did versus what the team did, and try to define the scope of the team was to do this, which is going to Mars, which was very complex because nobody else ever reached Mars. Easy way to explain the complexity. The impact was that once we landed there, we discovered that humans can potentially, I don't know, we discover water, which might eventually lead to people living on Mars. I was the one building the entire plan, the communication, managing the risk, and then responsible for the ultimate successful launch of the ship, right? So you make clear what the impact, what the complexity, and what your contribution was, right? So easy to understand, even if someone doesn't really know in depth your your topic or your subject, they will understand what you have done. Uh, Let me have a look at question. Oh, for those who wants that, someone else wrote me on Telegram, on the Telegram group as well. If this is going to be useful, we might have another one in a while for this CV review. So if you haven't done, you can do it for the next time. I'll be sure to post the message both on LinkedIn and on the Telegram group. So join the Telegram group if you're not there. Okay, Randall is asking, sorry, Marco, but if the system will not filter the CV, how someone is declined by the first wave is the recruiter usually. Is the recruiter looking at your CV and just so the ATS is not the formal for stuff. Well, at least I haven't experience that maybe there are companies doing it. I'm not saying, I can't speak for uh, every single company. I have seen many companies extracting information from your CV using an ATS. So the recruiter would said, okay, let me check. Okay, this is a good candidate. Let's move on to the next, or just looking at the information from the ATS. Oh, this person doesn't have this, and then open the CV and said, oh no, he does, right? He does. So let's move still this to the next steps. Um, yes, as usual, the recording will go on YouTube in the next few days. Um, um, yeah, so the recruiter will actually decline all the application. Yes, for the first step, yes. At least that's my experience. Then not all of them, the one that are blocked at the first step. Some others will just decline by the hiring manager. Some others will just get declined later as people go through the interviews. Ray, they asked me for my CV. I don't have a very up to date version, polished one, but I might do it for the next live. Um, yeah, I don't have one to show today. I mean, I do have one, but I'm not sure is making a good service by showing it because I haven't updated for a while, and so it might just break some of the recommendation I just gave people, which would not be great. Okay, so the last few things, optimal length. I would say between 1 and 2 pages. Okay, it's okay. I have reviewed good candidates with 3 pages, uh, but usually people with 3, 4 pages. I received once a CV when I was at Kraken for it was for a pretty senior role. It was 21 pages. I'm not joking. It was a CV of 21 pages. This person went, I mean, had almost the charter of all the key projects. Oh, I mean, I'm joking. It was not the charter, but this person went so much in detail on each of the project that it was 21 pages long. So 1 or 2 pages is usually the right size. The challenge start when you get more and more experience. When you get more and more experience, the tendency is I want to be sure everything I've done is reflected in my CV, right? And then start becoming more and more I mean longer and longer, right? And so you need to there are some, one option is you get things that are more far in time. Most probably if you have 20 years of experience, what you have done as first job after graduating is not very relevant anymore, or in some cases you might just shortening the things that are too far and focusing on the most recent one, which very likely are the one that are expressing at best your ability to work in the position you're applying for. Good. Let's other a few other things before getting into the review. I like hyperlinks. So don't add one hyperlink for each bullet point you have in your CV. But for the key projects or for things that might not be um clear in the first place, I work on this important project and you have a website for it, add the link. If the recruiter or the hiring manager are curious, they will just click, see, maybe get additional information about that. Um, it's just the barrier if they have to copy paste it into Google, search it, find the right link, click on it, is much higher than if they have the link in the first place. So don't do it too often because otherwise the noise to information ratio will be very high. If you add it for everything, they will not click everything. Imagine you can get them to click on 3 links. Which are the 3 links you really want to have in your CV, right? And I'm saying 3, if it's 5, sometimes it's 10, it's okay, right? But I'm saying don't put too many of them because otherwise they will just create noises. Uh, Other, I just mentioned it earlier. Your CV will go through very likely through an ATS, which will extract some key information, things like tables, graphics, like those fancy table that people use to score their skill level. Um, Also, some graphical representation of their skills, like pie charts, things like those. There's no way an ATS will read. Maybe it's not a big deal because the ATS will not care anyway about those. But in general, try to have a CV which is ATS friendly, and never hide important information behind the graph. Right? If there is an important information, be sure that is written in clear text, plain text. That's it. Uh, there are tools, you can Google them, that just check your CV for ATS compatibility. The easiest way is just take your CV, make a PDF, because usually you're going to submit a PDF, just copy paste everything, select all, copy, and throw it into a text, um, into a just plain text document, and you will see that's what the ATS will read. You will be surprised, especially the multi-column CVs. They just get all mixed together. They are completely unreadable. Um, Another important thing: the CV needs to be tailored to the role. Right? What does it mean? It means I look, even if I have my very well done CV, I look at the role. Be sure there is keywords matching. Right? If they ask, you need to have this expertise on this field, be sure that some way in your CV you mention that explicitly, even if you are using synonyms or it looks obvious to you because you are the expert, so you understand that the way you wrote your CV is referring exactly to that skill. The people reading your CV might not be as expert as you, so they will get confused. They will not find that word. They will believe you don't have that skill or that experience, right? So be crystal clear. It's really cheap to just don't do those things like people copy pasting the requirements into their CV and say, I have, and then the requirements. That's really dumb. That's when you see that's, yeah, really, but try to put it in context, right? They ask for that skill, take one of your achievements, say, I demonstrating having this skill in this specific project. Now, maybe this is oversimplified, but I guess you got my point, right? Uh, and especially if your CV, if you have your experience can be applied into different contexts, be sure that depending on which context you are applying, you tailor it to that very specific, you tailor it to that specific application. Um, and with this one, I think that those are all the main point I wanted to share before getting into the CV review. Um, oh, a couple more now came to my mind. Soft skills. That's as the summary at the bottom is one of the areas where people can go very wild and do very wrong thing. The don't start listening things that are obvious, right? I am a team worker. I If you want to do that and you believe you're exceptional in that, it means I'm not just as a team worker as the others. I'm really good at that, right? Tell people why. Why are you better than the average person on leadership? He said, yeah, I have very strong leadership. Why? Right? What do you have that is exceptional compared to people with similar leadership skill, right? So maybe you can say maybe leadership is not the right area, but negotiation, right? You can, or risk management, you can say, I completed these trainings, right? I mean, so you are just giving credits to the fact that you really have that skill. So if you want to say one of those things, be sure that your argument why you're better than the average. Don't say I don't know, I'm very good at working with people. Yeah, good. Welcome to the social world. Um, Try to really explain why you're better than the others. That's the key. If you want to get there, otherwise you can just mention the key things uh, without spending too much time in the soft skill section. Um, yeah, and with this one, let me just have a look to the question we have here. Let's see this. The CV style, Andra is asking, the CV style is the same regardless of which country I'm applying for. Um yes, but it depends. Let me give you an example. Uh, Currently in Switzerland, companies really like if you put your picture on the CV. They like to see your face. In the US, a photo is a no-go. Don't put a photo on your CV if you are applying for a US based company. Uh, don't ask me why. I mean, there are many reasons, and I'm not sure I know the exact reasons. But in general, not that your CV will get discarded because you have a photo or because you don't have a photo, right? It's not uh, a no go or should not be a go no go decision based if you have the right style. But what I wanted to say is that you can, if you know that some stuff is more interesting or less interesting in a specific country, you might decide to customize it a little bit. Uh, for instance, if you apply to a US role and for a US company role and you have already experience uh, working in international companies, the language section might not be very interesting for them because usually they don't care about anything but English and they expect you to know English if you're applying for a role. Other country, other roles, they might appreciate, especially in Europe, because it's a small continent. They can appreciate, and we have a lot of languages. They can appreciate if you can speak many of the languages, right? So, but these are just small things. I would not say that it's must to customize by country. You can do small things if you know, or if you want to save some space, right? If you want, it's getting too long, you want to save some space, you can maybe add or remove this information if you know that the company will not care about those specific information. Oh, it looks like the 21 pages document CV got a lot of interest. Uh, uh, Handra, there is no risk to be blocked with hyperlinks from company. I mean, antivirus. Yeah, there is definitely. So I will not hide any important information behind the link. You're just making them a favor. If you want to add a link, add it. And then if they click and it doesn't work, they will Google it if they are really, really interested about the topic. Uh, it's okay. Don't hide important information. Oh, you want to know about me? All the important things are at this link. Yeah, that thing will not work. Uh, mhm. Let me see. Uh, this is another interesting one. Julio asked, "How would you set a CV for a role in which you have no experience?" Julio, it depends. If the role is an entry level, more junior role, and they don't expect you to have experience, it's fine. If I apply for a role which require a lot of experience, um, and I don't have it, then I'm in trouble. I mean, I should not apply in the first place because it's very unlikely that they select me, and so I'm wasting my time doing it. I believe that what you might into is, I'm just a new grad. How do I build my CV? Right? I don't have experience. Focus more on what you have done till now. So your studies. Maybe spend a little bit more explaining what are. Don't give them the list of all the exam you pass. They might not be interested, but maybe touch on the key areas. Maybe explain a little bit about your thesis, what some important projects, if you have any part-time work you have done or any contribution to any project, add those, right? But if the it's an entry level position, is expected that you don't bring a lot of experience. Uh, Okay. The live ask when I should follow your recommendation. I mean, not everyone can quantify in terms of number how much impact they have had in the project. Absolutely, this is a very difficult one, right? So you can't expect to be able to quantify everything. What I'm saying is, where you can add numbers, might make a difference, right? Don't use subjective terms. Saying a lot, for example, can mean 10, right? If you tell me I manage a lot of people, I don't know if you refer to 1,000 people or to 10 people or to 100 people, right? So we're anytime you can trying to quantify. There are things that you cannot quantify, and then you might have to explain in other ways your impact and your contribution because you don't have numbers. Vencinson asked a smart thing. What about to make a CV for ATS and the second one to deliver to a human recruiter after first step? It's not going to work. The recruiter will get it. Will not. That it's not that the ATS will tell you good job and then the recruiter will just ping you. The recruiter will just look at the same CV the ATS look for. Okay. We take the last few and then we move into the CV review. I want to be sure we have enough time there. I received, I believe, six. I listed only five. I'm not sure we will get to all of them, but if not, we will do another one in the future, and I'll start from them. Um, Sulas Daily, does the tool used to create a CV play an important role? No, I would say you should just export a PDF and send it. So which tool do you use to create a PDF is your decision. It should be what I would say is should be easy for you to create and maintain it. So if you use LaTeX every day, go for LaTeX. It should be easy to export, it should be easy to update, and should generate something that is readable and is actually communicating your experience and your knowledge. So if it's LaTeX, it's perfectly fine. In some tools, you have more templates than others, but that said, any tool is good. Uh, last from Frappo, then I move into the review. I promise. Frappo, if there was a year in which you joined multiple companies because you couldn't find one you like, would you put all of them or just a summary of what you did in the year? You are supposed to put all of them because some company will do a background check even if you pass all reviews, and omitting important information like some companies you work for might actually be considered a reason to not proceed with the hire. Um, so you should list all of them, either explain why. Maybe it's a good way to use the summary, right? Or maybe you can attach a cover letter to explain that, um, because it's something that, yes, will ring a bell, or would just be considered a red flag from any hiring manager. They don't know if it was you or the companies. So it's not a very conventional situation. Um, so you might need to manage the communication on this point to be sure that it's not misunderstood.